Alrighty, welcome to Lockdown Live. We're going to get our first guest on here, Anna, who's always been a trusted expert in the field of coronavirus, to give us our daily update. Give her a call real quick, because I think we missed her last call.
I'm not here right now. Leave a message and I'll call you back.
Well, that's fun, isn't it? Bear with us with the technical difficulties.
Please record your...
I hope today... Oh, look at that. There we go. Hey, Anna.
Anna Bakery.
Hey, Anna. How's it going?
Hey, pretty good. How are you?
Pretty good. About as good as I can be. We're just going to be doing just sound today. We've been having some weird glitches with the little Mevo camera that we use, so we're just going to be doing a radio show again.
Oh, perfect.
So tell us how things are. There's been a lot today that's been flying around.
Like usual, I don't have any good news.
Right.
Let's
Gotten
see.
used to
so
that by now.
Today, I mean, I feel like most folks have probably kind of already seen the big, the new things that have happened today in terms of like, India put the entire country on lockdown, right? So that's crazy. Millions of people on lockdown.
Yeah.
And then more locally, New York, today, Dr. Birx, who's the MD, the doctor who is helping with the White House response to COVID-19, she said that anyone who has left New York recently should be putting themselves on a 14-day quarantine. So as of right now, epidemiologists and the administration are kind of looking at New York as like the hotspot.
Ground zero kind of.
Right now, which, was Seattle a couple weeks ago. And now New York has, I believe, 7% of the total cases in the world are out of New York.
Jesus.
New York's case count is doubling every 3 days. It's really bad, and I mean, it's at the point where it's so out of control. I mean, it's even administering more widespread testing and trying to identify clusters within that cluster. I don't know, what that would look like, how quickly you would see a difference. I know FEMA is trying to get 4,000 ventilators to New York City right now, and I saw Governor Cuomo did a briefing earlier, and he's like, well, 4,000, that's great, but we need 30,000. So you can pick which 26,000 are going to die. Like, when we talked about flattening that epidemic curve, what was that, March 13th? We put that article out. So 10 days ago? No, 11 days ago. It feels like it was last year.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
But we talked about, like, if we can't flatten the curve, we're going to overwhelm our healthcare capacity, our healthcare system capacity. And so now we're seeing the effects of that, right? Because we didn't enact, shelter in place, and we didn't more forcefully mandate those social distancing practices. And so now we're seeing that healthcare system capacity is getting overwhelmed, where, I mean, we don't have, I talked to one of my old college roommates on the phone. She's a surgeon in Detroit. She usually just does elective, laparotomies and GI surgeries and stuff. And they've got all folks on deck, and they're rotating doctors through. They've got plastic face shields that they're wearing so that they can disinfect those, and then they're just reusing surgical masks or N95s underneath those plastic face shields. I mean, we're low on ventilators, we're low on face masks, we're low on ICU beds.
Yeah, even
and it's not just in New York. I mean, it's in
Colorado.
a lot of different places.
Colorado is like down, I think, 7,000 ventilators, would be a thing. That Polis mentioned that, I think this morning or yesterday evening, is that we would probably need, close to that many. And I mean, that's just to keep in mind too. I mean, these things are the price of a new car, I mean, they're like $25,000 for one of the, usually speaking. So, and what, I forget if you saw this, but there was a country that I believe just gave up either yesterday or today on, or I think yesterday or the day before, on trying to do traceable sort of tracking, and is just trying to lock everything down. I forget if it wasn't Korea. It might have been.
Really?
It might have been France, I believe. I can't remember right now off the top of my head. I don't want to give any false information, but I think that's a trend right now too. That people are just like, there's no hope to try and do contact, tracing.
Contact tracing.
Yeah. So that's a scary scenario that is happening right now, I think, and I think it's frightening to hear the conversation shift towards the cureness, or the cure is worse than the illness sort of thing, because that is literally going against like everything anybody in this field has even vaguely advised, and it is so frustrating to watch that happen.
Yeah, I mean, you look at some of the Asian countries that were on they were on the downslope of their epidemic curve, and they relaxed those social distancing and shelter-in-place guidelines, and may have relaxed them too early while there was still a reasonable level of community transmission ongoing. And now we're seeing a second epidemic curve in some of those Asian countries. We're seeing cases coming back up. So
Hong Kong, I think, is a great example of that. They closed everything, or they tried to do like a sort of, they shut everything down and then they reopened things too early, and now they're having to close down again.
Who did you say?
Hong Kong.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Yeah,
that's probably a good example. And so like the only states that have, where the governor came out and they said, okay, statewide shelter in place are, actually California isn't even statewide, is it? It's just, is it more local to the Bay?
I think it's just specifically, I don't even know if LA has done it yet, to be honest. I haven't even, didn't even thought about that.
Well, Illinois and Washington, Maryland and California are the 4 states that have enacted pretty strict shelter in place rules, even, more locally. And I mean, globally, we're seeing that, we saw that happen today in India and Italy. And I believe, France is starting some of that too. And so, and people are still, they're like, oh, well, if I don't get a ticket, I am not going to abide. And so there are some places where local enforcement is starting to fine people and write them tickets. And so those prices are starting to go up to kind of further, discourage people from being together in public, which it's like, do you really need a $150 citation to discourage you when you know that you could be contributing to like someone's health, like life or death? Like it just blows my mind, kind of the level of dismissiveness and ignorance, I guess, that we're seeing in some people now.
Well, it kind of shows off like people's true intent. I mean, this is it's wartime, man. Like this is, and it doesn't feel real just yet for enough people. But I think, reading what the horror stories from Italy and the horror stories from Spain and, all of these places, we're in it like next week. We're really going to start to really experience some of, because it's the gestation period of the virus is like, 2 weeks, I think, if, at that.
So the incubation period, it's highly variable. And what they're saying right now as a rule of thumb is median incubation period is 5 days. That can be as short as 2 days, and it can be as long as 11 days.
Right.
So, when you think about it from that standpoint, when you've got an incubation period that can be as long as 11 days and you put people on a shelter-in-place order and then 5 days later you say, hey, we're not seeing a reduction in cases. This is bullshit. This isn't working.
Mm-hmm.
You have to be thinking about it from like a long game standpoint,
Right.
And look at the incubation period of the disease and take that out 2 generations and say, okay, when are we going to actually start to see these numbers come down?
Yeah.
You got to think about it that way, and we have people currently making decisions that aren't thinking about it that way.
Right. I mean, I think the New York Times epidemiologist correspondent, who covers pandemics and whatnot, put it the best way when he was kind of asked, like, what would be the ideal situation for this? And he said, if we had a magic wand and go back, until sort of January, early February, we could put everybody on lockdown for 2 weeks and it would have worked. But now we're way past the point of that really working. And we have to reckon with the fact that because we didn't act earlier, we're in this now for longer. And the further down that train of logic that we go of not acting, the longer we're going to be in this for,
Yeah.
And I've seen a bunch of, and it's baffling to me that small business owners are I've seen a lot of small business owners who are doing really amazing things, hunkering down, really advocating for the right things and the health of their communities and whatnot. One that comes to mind is Mutiny Cafe. They're awesome in Denver. They're doing that.
Who?
And Mutiny Information Cafe, they're a coffee shop in downtown.
Oh, yeah.
And they're doing really great. They're actually, advocating for this sort of thing and like kind of being a little bit of an example of like how to be community oriented in the new times, so to speak. But I will say that it's baffling to me that I've read so many, think pieces about the is the cure, worse than the illness, blah, blah, blah. And it's coming from people who, guys, come on. Like, I would happily shut everything down, try and fucking figure something out. Just try and figure something out, than be stuck with an economic nightmare for like a year,
Yeah.
That's what we're, is if we don't do it now, if we don't swallow, because the inaction of the government, on a federal level, even to a degree on somewhat of a local level, now we have to swallow that pill, and it's going to be 2 months or 3 months maybe or whatever, if we do it now. But if we're talking about reopening the country by Easter, that's just some insane shit to me,
It's wild. I mean, it's absolutely... yeah. I mean, and the fact that there isn't more, more national guidance on this is kind of shocking. Early on, and I know we try to not get political on this, but I feel like after everything that's happened today, it's kind of like impossible not to.
It's becoming politicized,
said, hey, What was that?
It's becoming slightly politicized now in some ways, because of the it's up to politicians and the government now to control a response, and they're not doing it. So now it's kind of become that,
Yeah. I mean, when Trump initially said basically, okay, hey states, it's up to you. You do your own thing. We're not going to like bail you out.
Right.
It did, it gave each state a little bit of flexibility in procuring their own resources and saying, okay, we're going to need this many ventilators. But then you started seeing these instances of states that were stockpiling and kind of hoarding, and states are now literally competing with each other, and they're in like bidding wars on ventilators, and they're in bidding wars on buying out the next, masks that come out. And so, whether or not you think we should have a more decentralized government or not, or where you fall on that political spectrum, it's like, I don't know. I think I think we need some more national kind of uniformity in how the shelter-in-place orders are going, at least, because when you are running it state by state, but you've got each of these states have their own little kind of outbreaks happening, you've essentially, it's not like the United States is on one big epidemic curve. You've got all these little curves that are kind of running their course in each area. And so everything, the timeline on everything is so different and so variable, because you've got highly variable orders coming from the
right.
governors or from even the mayors of the cities, right? I mean,
right.
it's not like in China where they just said, okay, the entire country do this, or like India, hey, you're all in lockdown. It's like U.S. is so decentralized, and we really pride ourselves on our autonomy and our independence and so on and so forth. And so now we're seeing the kind of effects of that reflected in the fact that, okay, each state is trying to handle this on its own, and it's not really working.
No. And I mean, yeah, you've got, on the spectrum, you've got states that are doing a decent job at it, and then you've got states that are in big trouble, I mean, New York is in big trouble. How many, do you know, I mean, probably not off the top of your head, how many cases are we up to there? How many have we added today, even? You still there?
In New York, let's see.
What are we?
And somebody that is listening just said South Korea gave up contact tracing in reference to our conversation
Perfect.
From earlier.
That was amazing. Perfect. Thank you. I can't see the comments right now, but yes. So
no, that was my dad just private messaged me.
Oh, okay, never mind. Perfect. Then. Yeah.
Okay, so let's see. In New York, let's see. So now the nice thing about this Johns Hopkins map is they've got it at much higher resolution. So in New York, we are at almost 15,000 confirmed cases, 131 deaths. And then in some of the other areas outside, you've got 3,700. Yeah, so it's really bad in New York. Zooming over here, I'm going to throw this link in the comments.
Perfect.
There is that for those of you that don't have that bookmarked. Or, I don't know, maybe not everyone's like a map nerd like me. I look at this every couple hours, but
well,
So you zoom over here to the Colorado. Zoom over to Colorado. It looks like, I don't think they've updated us yet today because we're still at 34. Yeah. But if we go to CDPHE, I know that website is, they do a fantastic job of updating everything. And I totally meant to check on these numbers before I called you, and I forgot. So I'm just going to pull them up real quick here. What about you? Did you hear any updates? Anything cool or no, I don't know, not cool? Do you have any good news?
I mean, yeah, there's the pretty typical stuff. There's the pretty typical stuff like Bill Gates chiming in, which I thought his quote was probably the best of today.
Oh my God.
Yeah, I mean, the guy who warned us in 2015.
Are you ready for this? Colorado, 912 cases.
Today?
No, just in total.
Oh, man. Woof. Jesus.
84 hospitalized in 35 counties, 7,700 people tested, 11 deaths, 7 outbreaks at residential and non-hospital healthcare facilities.
Yeah, those are new. That's definitely new. That's gone up since even just
That
yesterday.
was updated at 4 o'clock today. So,
so that's
these numbers are a couple hours old. And I'm going to, let's see. So for this case summary here, this links to a nice PDF, and it has the numbers from today. Yeah, that totals 912. So I'm going to throw that link in here as well. So for our listeners from Colorado, you can hit that link and go look at, by county if you're interested in that. And then also I will, again, throw my little sheet that I made with all these links.
Mm-hmm. Always worth doing that for sure.
Yeah, so here's more local stuff.
Yeah, how's Fort Collins doing these days? I mean, I know they've been trying to ramp up efforts, but it seems like they've, I don't know. I've heard from a couple of friends of mine that are still up there that people, when you drive through the town or whatever, it still doesn't feel as empty as it probably should. I had that experience in Denver, to be honest, the other day, and I think we were talking about that yesterday, where it just doesn't feel quite as eerie as you would expect it to,
Yeah, no, it's, I actually was just working from home in Loveland today, and, man, I'm really bad at multitasking. Okay, both links are posted.
Hey.
Things in Loveland are, people are still doing a lot of walking around, so, people are, at the kind of communal, like trailheads and things like that, I'm still seeing a lot of folks parked and taking walks and stuff. And so, I mean, you just kind of hope that folks are keeping their distance from one another while they're hiking and walking and stuff. But
sure.
I talked to a buddy of mine, and he lived near campus, and he said there were a bunch of kids out partying yesterday in their yard, and they've just been out there drinking and playing beer pong every day. And so, you know, it's CSU kids that are back from spring break. All the classes got moved online, but their leases go through August, right? So, like, they don't really have any reason to leave. And so, those situations are concerning because, again, that's that age group where we're seeing people that are asymptomatic and they're still shedding live virus. And so, or they're asymptomatic and you find out later on, you know, they were infected. And so just thinking about it from the standpoint of kind of a typhoid Mary, like could these people be, you know, super shedders or super spreaders and
and just not even abiding
that,
you
know, aren't lucky enough to be asymptomatic. Yeah, so there's still quite a bit of activity, I think, up in Fort Collins. I think most of our friends, I think, are being pretty good and pretty responsible about it. But
totally,
you know, the grocery stores are still kind of madhouses, and I need to go restock soon, and I'm a little bit nervous. But you know.
I mean, I think I said this yesterday. Just go to your, you know, if there, I don't know, there's a couple of them up there, but try and go to, you know, an Asian supermarket because racist white people. You know, and they need business. That's the thing, is like ours down here was empty. I drove past King Supers, it was packed. I drove to and they've got meat and fish and like literally everything you could possibly want. And I walked in and it was just me in the fucking store. And I was like, what the fuck is this shit?
That's smart. Yeah, I saw somebody that works at the food co-op up in Fort Collins said, you know, our shelves are stocked. We're not running out every day. And so it's, you know, some of these smaller stores, especially I like the idea of checking out, you know, some of the stores owned by, you know, some of the family owned kind of like Asian and Indian stores. And plus they just have such yummy stuff there too, but they're probably a lot less, I don't know, apocalyptic and scary and violent than going to King Soopers right now.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I mean, like I said, you know, I think it was a week and a half ago, I, you know, stood in line and did the dance at King Soopers, and it was awful. It felt more like a riot than anything. And, you know, a friend of mine, I think, talked about this, that it was riotous, and it felt the energy there was just woof. And, you know, I did that once. I'm good. If I can go to, you know, some of my local spots up in here that are just small little grocery stores and patronize a local business, it's like a win-win, you know. Then on top of that, I don't have to deal with, you know, people shoving each other for packets of tuna, you know.
It reminds me a little bit of those really scary videos you see of like the Black Friday shopping when people accidentally get like trampled, and you're like, okay, how many people died Black Friday shopping this year? You're like, okay.
Yeah, it was like, it seriously was probably like, you know, 20, it was just one, you know, angry spat away from becoming a situation where people were going to get trampled. And that's the scary bit, when it's just teetering on the edge. Like, it's still civil, but you know, if somebody, you know, annoys one other person, it's just going to go downhill, you know. It's going to erupt.
Hey, do you know, I think we talked about this yesterday, but a lot of stores are, so they're open from like 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. so they can have enough time at night to restock everything.
Yeah.
So then the 8 a.m. to like 9 a.m. period, and I'm sure it varies by store, but first thing in the morning, they are opening it for the elderly and pregnant customers and folks that may be at risk of contracting it. And then, you know, at 9 a.m. or whatever time, then they open it up to general shoppers.
Yeah.
Do you know if there's a place to get that information? And also, I'm just thinking of our friends that, you know, are immunocompromised or may have other underlying health conditions. I mean, I wonder if hopefully they're not, you know, policing people and saying, oh, no, you're not elderly or pregnant, you can't come in. But, you know, I'm just thinking of those people that maybe don't have outwardly visible things that scream, hey, I'm more susceptible to being infected with this virus and developing really severe symptoms.
Yeah. I don't know. I've heard about, and I think we did talk about this. It was either yesterday or the day before. We talked about this sort of thing, this elderly hours for grocery stores. King Super City Market saying for all of the customers, so 7 a.m. to 8 a.m., I believe. Is
okay.
7 or okay, wait, here it is. Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays from 7 a.m. to 8 a.m. is exclusively shopping needs for senior citizens, a temporary move to blah blah blah, at-risk customers, etc. So that's for King Supers. I think they're all doing different things. So King Supers is 7 a.m. to 8 a.m. Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays. Safeway and Albertsons are doing that 7 a.m. to 9 a.m. Monday through Friday. Walgreens, 8 a.m. to 9 a.m. Okay. And so they all kind of have different ones. I'll link this in the comment. There's a 9 News segment.
That'd be great. Maybe I'll throw that in my spreadsheet too. That's good. That's a good resource to have.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll just pop that in right there. 9 News. So yeah, they all have different hours. I don't know how they're policing it though. Do they just have, grocery store workers saying, no, you can't come in? Because I have no idea how you even would go about that,
I mean, I want to say, believe in the goodness of people and, assume that people won't take advantage of that. But also, I mean, there are people who bought enough toilet paper to last a family of 4 for 12 years.
Yeah.
So, I think kind of reason and logic goes out the window with some folks in times like these.
Yeah, I mean, you would, again, it's like just hammering home the idea we're in a war now. This is a war. Like, this is the biggest. We're going to be a different group of people as a nation when we come out on the other side of this. Just in general, this is huge. And on top of that,
I know,
with the projected curve, the way that it looks, and pretty much what I've been seeing, it's not looking good for the next couple of weeks as far as, just all kinds of stuff. So it's about to get very serious. We're all going to have to pitch into this together and be together and take care of each other because, there's no time for this sort of squabbly shit about, just selfishness. There's really no time. And to be honest, I've basically stopped trying to, there's a certain limitation to me being gentle and subtle when people are like, but I still want to go out,
I know. I've gotten to the point where I'm like, okay,
it's just,
I like to try to see all viewpoints and see all sides of things.
Yeah, sure.
But if I say it once and then they try to argue with me after I've made my point, and I'm like, it's for public health. Like, you have to think about it from a more kind of utilitarian aspect, right? Or standpoint. And people aren't willing to do that.
Yeah, this isn't.
And it is war, and so I think it's interesting. Donald Trump said he's a wartime president, and so I think if we are really thinking about this like a war, I mean, you have to think of the long game, right? You have to be going into it thinking about the long game and saying, hey, we're going to be raring to go by Easter. That's not a long game approach. That's, hey, let's open things back up because we don't want the economy to tank any worse when, hey, that epidemic curve is going to start looking like it's coming down because we're going to start seeing the effects of social distancing that we're implementing now and last week. We'll start to see those effects maybe in a couple of weeks, I think. Mm-hmm. And, by the time that happens, everybody will have been mixing about, and any ongoing contact community transmission that was occurring is then going to, amplify, and we're going to see that epidemic curve come back up. We're going to have a second curve. We're going to see more cases, and basically the same thing that's happening in Hong Kong, where now they're seeing more cases because they relaxed their social distancing rules too early. I mean, we're going to see that happen, and this is going to go into the fall.
Yeah.
And then we're going to be dealing with not only this, but seasonal influenza coming back on board. So
exactly.
It's just really concerning.
The long-term fiscal impacts of this, but, just in general, that from where I'm sitting and what I can see and read and digest, the long-term fiscal impacts, if we let this drag out for months and months and months, would be far worse. Even in just our case, if we have to close down our distribution locations just because those businesses fold or go away or have to shut down repeatedly over the next 12 months, essentially, it would cause a massive disruption. Not, let alone those businesses that would have to continue to close, but even just for us as a magazine, it would be absurd to do that. I would much rather go without an issue for a month or a month and a half or whatever it's going to be able to resume normal operations in like June, maybe. You know what I mean? We can't keep pretending like, oh boy, even just on an economic level, we can't keep pretending, that doing this is so bad. It's better than the alternative, which is doing this for a year. If you really want to do it, like you really want to do this for a year because that's what you're signing everybody up for by ignoring these orders. That's just the main point of fact. And like the economy wouldn't be able to do it. You would have massive amounts of strikes probably. I mean, think about just renters, like
oh my God.
I mean, that would be insanity. So it's like, I don't know if these people who are using that the cure is worse than the illness bullshit really understand what's happening right now, just from an economic level. And it's always like there we go. Just get rid of them.
I will say, I think it's ironic that the messaging is the cure is worse than the illness when these two drugs that are being pushed really hard by the White House administration, which the White House has claimed do have FDA approval for off-label use. However, other health officials within the administration have not confirmed that. And so I'm not exactly clear on whether or not compassionate use or off-label use is okay for these drugs, but the hydroxychloroquine and the chloroquine drugs that we were talking about, that people are taking and poisoning themselves with because they're overdosing. And so this couple in Arizona, the husband died, the wife is in critical care. The White House is still pushing or kind of, hyping up these two drugs when all of the evidence that we have to suggest that they might be efficacious is anecdotal at this point. I just think in terms of messaging, I just find it, and I'm not, I'm not a medical doctor. I'm not making any claims about treating patients or anything because I can't do that. But I just think it's ironic when the messaging is, the cure can't be worse than the illness, and here we're pushing these drugs that people are trying to dose themselves with at home, and they're poisoning themselves.
Yeah.
Someone in Nigeria died as well. They were trying to dose themselves, and so it's. I think it really just gets back to, or really highlights the fact that we need Anthony Fauci, and we need people that are controlling the messaging at the highest levels and helping enforce these rules and, guide the way forward that are epidemiologists and they are virologists and they are medical doctors and they understand how difficult it is when things get hard in the clinic. And, it's just shocking.
We just need a little leadership, maybe, I mean,
yeah.
And I mean, Fauci had, like we've talked about multiple times, and it's really hard to, you gotta separate him out from the whole traditional Trump camp. He is great. He is fantastic, and he's doing good shit. So, but it's like we need more of him, like you're saying. We need more of that guiding beacon to give us a little bit of hope here. We don't need this whole bullshit of, wouldn't it be nice if we would be open by Easter again? Because that shit is totally lunacy and not even, it's not fucking real. Like, it's just not going to fucking happen. And, unless you want tons and tons of people to die, unless you want that, it's not going to fucking happen,
Yeah. Yep.
So.
Yeah, and it's going to take time to kind of figure out if remdesivir is going to be the antiviral of choice, and then we still have those. Maybe for tomorrow's call, I'll do a little bit of digging and see where they're at with clinical trials on some of these vaccines, and maybe we can kind of have a quick chat about that. But let's see. I have my good friend Danielle.
Oh.
Okay, this is too amazing. Speaking of Anthony Fauci, my good friend Danielle, who I want to get on the show with me at some point because she is a veterinarian that also studies coronaviruses, but she sent me this candle, and it's a Dr. Fauci like little kind of votive candle.
Oh yeah, one of those, you know, usually
so I put that
with
link in the comments, but I'm definitely going to buy one for my office.
Hell yes, let's have a look on this one. Actually, I'm really curious.
Anyway, so I think we should all purchase one of those, and we should all pray to it every day before the press conference that Anthony Fauci stays healthy.
I think I'll just get one to light during our show. You know, when we're talking about this sort of thing.
That's a good idea.
That'd be perfect. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, that is.
I'm gonna make a little Anthony Fauci shrine above my desk.
Well, perfect. Okay, I guess we'll dig into that tomorrow. Yeah, I'm curious. I haven't really seen anything of the new, of those new drugs that are being tested or trying to, you know, be worked on right now. I haven't seen any new news on it, but if you want to do some digging, that'd be amazing. Also,
yeah, I'll review that for tomorrow.
Also, yeah, let's get some other people on here. I'm pretty sure we can do conference calling, so that would be fantastic.
Okay, well, we can test it out.
Yeah, we'll make it work. But all right, thank you for coming on, Anna.
Yeah, we'll talk to you tomorrow.
Yes. All right. Bye-bye.
Okay.
Alrighty, gonna wait for our next caller. Got a really interesting interview coming up next. We're gonna be talking about rent strike, not paying your rent because who can afford it right now when everybody's lost their jobs? And for now, I'm gonna step away for just a second while we get this next call lined up. We're gonna let's put on some. Ooh, you know what? We're going to put back on some Plume. They were really, really amazing. And it shouldn't be very long, so stick around with us. Oh, holy moly. Actually, never mind. We're just going to keep rolling into it because this call is coming in right now.
Hello.
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 Oh,
Can you hear me?
Yeah, this is a Steve.
Yes, it is. How's it going?
Hi, Steve. How are you doing, Steve Jones? Ladies and gentlemen.
I'm good. This is Steve Jones, in case anybody's curious about which Steve.
Well, yeah. I mean, there are many Steves. So, how are you doing in quarantine? Well, in lockdown mode.
Oh man. Well, you know what I was thinking about was, I'm naturally an introvert anyway, so it's not killing me as much as it is some people. But what I'm worried about is that I will go from introvert to misanthrope. I'm just out walking the dog, and I'm looking out of the corner of my eye to see if there are any disease-carrying people coming.
Oh God!
It's really where caution meets neuroses kind of thing.
Don't become a shut-in. Don't become a shut-in for sure. I mean, it is difficult, I mean, every time regardless if I hear this like off in the distance, I'm like, where did that come from?
I know.
And I don't know if that's a particularly good thing or, I guess it's one of those things. If you're out anywhere, you're at risk. Let's be real. At this point, if you're out anywhere, you're at risk. And
you're putting other people at risk.
Yes. Are you doing the dishes, or are you currently, doing some business?
I'm like in terms of work, or
no? I just hear a lot of. It sounds like you're doing the dishes.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, I took my dog out for an isolated walk in a field where there are no people, and
as opposed to a field where there are a lot of
just
people.
washing his paws.
Nice. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, what else are you doing to stay sane? What's your last book that you read? Give me something.
Oh well, I teach online, so that part of it really hasn't changed all that much.
That's nice.
Yeah, and actually I'm working more now than I normally do because instead of just teaching, I'm designing classes. So I actually feel busier.
Oh, geez.
Which is an odd feeling.
Yeah.
But yeah, we just got groceries delivered today.
Mm-hmm.
Put in an order about a week ago, and finally came today.
Yeah, that's what we are actually doing the exact same thing. We put in an order about 3 or 4 days ago, and it's supposed to apparently show up on Friday. The same with the liquor store. So,
crazy.
Liquor store delivers booze and cigarettes. So it tells you how well I'm doing quitting smoking right now. But that is so. Yeah, I mean, you're at least you're stocked up. At least you're ready to go, and at least you have access to a field, to go out and be out there,
Yeah, it is nice. Just, that I feel like I'm in a spy movie as I'm exiting my apartment. I'm like listening and looking around the corner, seeing if anybody's coming.
Right. Try to maintain
some distance. It's really kind of pathetic, but I guess it's, a good reason for it.
Yeah.
And then once I get out in the field, then it's just, Kiva can run around and stuff, and I try to keep up with him.
Yeah, to specify, Kiva's your dog, not a...
Oh, yeah, sorry. Yeah.
I mean, well, the thing...
Details.
Yeah, I mean, it's a little necessary.
My imaginary friend that I developed, he's like my Wilson.
Yeah.
My quarantine Wilson named Kiva.
I mean, it is kind of odd. Had that moment today, honestly, sitting out in the sun, realizing that everything can both feel so normal at the same time as it is also feeling completely different and abnormal and, scary. I was sitting on my back patio, beautifully sunny, brilliant day today, just listening to music, relaxing, but then realizing, oh dear God, this is both so like normal. Somehow it was like so much anxiety that I don't have any anxiety right now about it. It's like overloaded. I don't know if it's I'm feeling it at its maximum or its minimum. I can't tell anymore. But it was surreal. It's like, oh, this is what the end of the world looks like. Great, cool. On a beautiful day.
Yeah, that's one of the other things that I'm worried about, that we'll get accustomed to the fear to a certain extent, that we start taking risks that are unnecessary at some point.
Yeah, I just hope that at the end of it, really, at the other side of this, when we come out of it, to be honest, people were touching their faces too much anyway, and they weren't washing their hands much at all anyway, So if people get better habits about that stuff, if that's the thing we keep, sweet. Like, great. Fuck yeah. That would be perfect. Like, wash your hands more, stop touching your fucking face. Like, that would be great. If that's what we learn out of this. Like, I don't know, though. I really hope that we don't lose the love for, like, going out socializing. I really don't think we will.
Right, yeah.
Even the way that I'm talking to you right now through the digital world, through a phone, all of this shit, it's not the same as being in the same room or sitting down and having a drink together or doing a thing together or, going on a run or doing whatever it is, it's not the same and it will never be the same. And that's okay. We need that,
Yeah.
So, but anyway, brother, I'm going to let you go. We're going to keep moving on in the segments. So we
Sounds
will.
Good, man. Thanks for doing what you're doing.
Of course. We'll talk soon.
Appreciate it. Toodles.
All right. Here we go. Here comes our next caller. Give us 1 second to get that lined up. Hey, Adrian, how you doing?
Oh, it's fucking horrible, man. How are you?
Oh man, that was probably about the the best way to respond, just because it was filled both with this like sort of exacerbated it's like glee to it. You know what I mean? There's like oh man, it's fucking horrible.
Hey man.
Yeah. So tell me.
I'm not exactly known for some subtlety.
No. We want that around here. We like that. So,
Tell me what?
walk me through your day these days.
My day today.
Yeah, I mean, just in general, like how's life going with, you know, how has this affected you, you know, that kind of thing. Walk me through it, because
It's really weird. Okay, so it's really weird because my band has, you know, we just signed a record deal, and like, you know, we're about to release like some stuff, and you know, I feel like it's close enough to like the date that like, you know, I could just start talking about it. No one really cares, but like, we're you know, it's weird because like, we're trying to be like stoked about this record coming out.
Right.
And also, you know, deal with the fact that like, hey, the end of the world might be happening, you know?
Yeah.
And that's just a weird thing to think about, you know?
Well, and how are you gonna, you know, you're like, yeah, how do you be stoked to try and promote your thing, you know, when it's like, oh shit, there's this giant crisis going on. You know what I mean? Like, you almost, I mean, for me personally, I feel a little weird about promoting anything in general, because it's like, but there's this, like, people are about to die and getting really sick and all of this shit. It's like, you know?
Yeah, and I think for that reason, I think right now is a time when people need music the most.
Exactly.
And like arts and things of that nature. We need that escape because, you know, all we have right now is like our video games and our Netflix and our music and like our, you know, drugs or whatever. And like, you know, whatever we're stuck in the house with, that's what we got. And it's all thanks to artists that we have stuff to do right now.
Right.
Occupy our minds. Because like, you know, we're supposed to stay in, and yet, that's a whole other thing. So, you know, the point I wanted to make about like promoting stuff right now is like, you know, maybe someone could use a reason to be excited about something.
Right.
You know, and like maybe New Plasma Canvas is that reason, which like, you know, I'm happy to give that to them if that's that reason. And it just so happens we have a record coming out. But you know, another thing is like, so I work at a factory where we make parts for hospitals. Like we make little clamps and valves and little pieces of tubing for hospital equipment and whatnot.
Oh, geez.
Yeah, so I work in a clean room, and you know, I noticed that like half the people that were there are now gone, and it's not because like they all got sick or anything. It was because like the assembly tables have X amount of chairs seated at them, and like people have to be sitting 6 feet apart. So like half the people, you know, either got moved to some other area of the factory that I don't know about, or they lost their jobs for a while. Yeah.
Non-essential. Well, they ordered, I think Polis ordered the, you know, reduction of in-person workforce as much as possible, you know. So
yeah, and it's a weird thing because like, you know, the entire office staff, the people that push the papers and all that stuff, they're all working from home, but I'm going to work every day because someone has got to pick these orders off the shelves and get them shipped and packaged and delivered to these hospitals that need them. And but it's kind of shitty because you know, I'm a temp at this factory, and you know, the full-time workers, the people that are actually employed by the factory, they get like 80 hours of PTO or 40 hours of PTO, something like that. But we don't get that because we're just temps. And it's like, I feel like we're being expected to perform as well as the full-time employees and perform all the same duties and be under the same like sort of level of hazard as everyone else there, except, you know, we're not getting paid for it.
Right.
And we're not treated equally. And it's, you know, I guess you could argue like when you get a full-time job, that's one thing, but you know, it just feels like, you know, we're all living in this same pandemic, doing the same work, working the same hours, and like, you know, yet this company is treating, you know, like kind of making the temps especially feel like we're a little bit disposable.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And it's a hard place to be in because, like, you know, we're supplying parts to hospitals that will save people's lives.
Yeah.
And, you know, that's important, but at the same time, it's like, you know, I don't make enough money to like be putting myself in, you know, sort of in danger by going to work, you know, and being around a bunch of people every day when everyone else is being told like you need to stay home.
Yeah.
You know, but
yeah, but you also need the money
because
you've got, you know, a lease on a place, and then, you know, that
there's a whole thing about that.
Exactly.
There's a whole fucking thing about that.
That's what I wanted to get onto. Because that's why we're here.
Oh yeah?
Oh no, I want to talk about it because it's important. It's bogus. Do you know
Are you
what I
talking about the fact that tenants are getting fed up with the fact that all of these landlords and property management companies are price gouging this crisis to extort money out of them whenever they don't have a goddamn dime because they just got laid off or lost their job?
If I had sound
effects. You want
to
talk about the fucking rent strike that's about to happen in this place because people can't afford to live?
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I've got one or two things to say about it. I am in a fortunate position where I still do have a job.
Yeah.
But my roommate's dad just died. So like she just moved back down with her family, and you know, so like I can't cover the whole month, and you know, like I guess all I'm trying to say is a lot of people are in that position. You know, a lot of restaurant workers. I got a neighbor who works at a restaurant, and you know, I'm sure like she's probably feeling it, and like, you know, a bunch of people I know work in restaurants. My partner works on a coffee truck that's on the college campus, which is closed.
Yep.
And, you know, everyone is feeling this. And so it can't be too big of a stretch of the imagination to think that, you know, when we're seeing letters and emails from landlords and property management companies that are just horrendously inhumane and inconsiderate and condescending to these tenants, especially in this time right now where people are really suffering and people are really scared, it's abhorrent. And I feel like it's time that Fort Collins organized a collective tenants union to have an autonomous voice and collectivize the issues that we have with the fact that rent is out of control. People that have grown up here can no longer afford to live here. The people that work here can't afford to live here. You know, I'm grateful that this place has been so accepting of me as a trans person, but like trans people of color in general, like indigenous people, like these are the people that are being impacted the most by this.
Yeah.
And like,
well, and I mean,
just,
there's an interesting question in there, you know, about with a rent strike, right? Which is definitely the right way to go. Is to essentially kind of what you just articulated, the idea that it's like, look, guys, we don't fucking have this money because, you know, unemployment's hitting 20% in Colorado right now. So you're not getting your rent. Sorry, like that's just not happening, and it's not going to be deferred or whatever. We want it completely, you know, forgiven. We want to move on, because even if it was just suspended, even if it just moved, you'd still be a month behind. You know, you'd just be a month behind. A month later. Like that doesn't make a fucking difference. But I think
like if my job cuts me out and everything, and I'm forced to quarantine for a couple of weeks, I'm a temp. I'm not going to make money. I'm not going to have anything.
Yeah.
But the property management companies don't give a fuck. They don't care. They want their money because you signed the lease and you're supposed to give them money. But if we organize, we can show them that we don't have to take that shit.
Well, and even in the cases,
it's not right for us to have to, you know, for people to have to like borrow money or try to get a loan just to stay in their place whenever they're being ordered, you know, everything short of an order by the government to stay in their homes. That's wrong.
Right. And I mean, even in the cases where, you know, you have, because you're talking, you know, you're speaking just on a broader level too. You got people who have sort of cash flowed their properties, right? Like, so, but they still owe a bank, right? And they're landlords of, like, just say a house, right? And they're renting out a house. That house is still, you know, that money still is owed to the bank. They can cash, or they, if those tenants go on a rent strike, it will put pressure on the landlords to put pressure on the banks, which is ultimately, in the end, what really needs to happen too. Because we're talking, you know, when we do the suspension of debt, that encompasses student loans, that encompasses medical, that encompasses everything, you know. And I think that's part of the solution here is it's like, I think it has to travel from the bottom up, right? It's got to travel from the tenants saying, nope, we're not going to pay. You go run back to your bank and tell them that you're not going to pay, you know, go, you know, put pressure on the banks. Because you are the ones holding the mortgage, you know, they're the ones who actually hold the mortgage who can say, yeah, no, we're not paying, you know, or we can't pay because literally none of our tenants can pay. And what a rent strike would do is essentially forcing those landlords that haven't already been gracious enough to, you know, suspend rents, which there are some, you know, we don't want to get too down in the pits. There's not everybody's doing it. There are some who have forgiven debts, and that's amazing. We encourage that behavior by going on a rent strike. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. And another point that I'd like to make about the rent strike is that this is not, you know, this is not a movement solely by tenants and, you know, punks and anarchists and whatever. Like there are landlords that agree completely with this because they know that rent is out of control.
Yeah.
It's hard to rent, you know, it's hard to rent a place that you know is astronomically overpriced.
Yep.
And also, you know, if the mortgages are suspended, as you know, it's being talked about, then these people don't have to pay the mortgages on their properties, and so they don't need the tenants' money.
Mm-hmm.
But you know, and we encourage that kind of behavior. Like everyone that I know that is organizing the rent strike and having anything to do with it is encouraging landlords to just be cool with their tenants and work with us to demand a moratorium on rent and mortgage payments.
Exactly.
And utilities and student loan debt and medical debt and what have you. You know, we're trying to get them involved and on the same side.
Yeah.
Because it doesn't just benefit tenants to have these things, but you know what we're unfortunately seeing from the government side of things, and you know the biggest reason that the GOP relief bill was struck down was because it was way too big on the slush funds for the corporations, and there wasn't enough money by a lot directed at the American people. And it, you know, I'm not a Democrat by any means. I definitely identify fully as an anarchist, but you know, I have a lot of issues with the Democrats, but I don't think rejecting this bill and citing that it didn't do enough to help individual workers, I don't think that was a bad thing. I think they did the right move there. But I think that, you know, a lot of Republicans were quick to slam the book at Democrats and say, how dare you, quote unquote, politicize this tragedy. But it's not politicizing a tragedy to ensure that everyone affected by it is taken care of, and it is politicizing a tragedy to accuse someone of that whenever they're trying to make sure that everyone is adequately cared for.
Right. I totally agree. Couldn't agree more. And yeah, I mean, what are some of the groups, just to change the subject? Well, not really change the subject, but kind of dive in a little bit deeper. What are some of the groups and people you've been seeing that have been doing sort of the activism side of this thing, you know, even locally, because we kind of have to build it on a grassroots side of things when we're talking about, you know, organizing anything like a rent strike or like any of these other things, these relief projects, whatever it is. Have you seen anybody kind of really, you know, pushing forward on it, or any one group either on Facebook or whatever, you know, anywhere, any resources, that kind of thing?
Well, that's the coolest thing about it, Anthony, is that, like, everyone that I know that is getting involved in organizing this is just people. They're just regular people. They don't, like, there's not really a group. I mean, there's a Facebook group, Colorado Rent Strike and Eviction Defense, that we're encouraging people to join, because there's a huge group of people there, and we're getting some documents together to get some signatures and have an official, like, list of demands and everything like that. So definitely go there and check that out. But for the most part, I mean, Front Range Mutual Aid Network is a Facebook page too that, you know, some people are actively involved in multiple projects like that. But, you know, for the most part, it's just people that are concerned. People that have different backgrounds, people that have different levels of experience with, like, organizing things like this. And you know, it's just people that recognize that there's an opportunity to shift momentum in a way that really helps people, and to stand in solidarity with people that don't have a lot right now. And the whole point of strikes, you know, in this rent strike is, like, you know, maybe you can pay your rent, but there are a lot of people who just lost their jobs who can't. And if we all collectively decide we're not going to pay rent this month, then that sends the message that we are the ones with the power.
Yeah, it's solidarity.
Not the landlords, it's not the banks, it's the people who put food on the table for themselves and cash in the pockets of the landlords. And if we seize that cash flow, then we control the dialogue. And that's what we need to try to do with this strike.
It's solidarity. It's solidarity amongst, you know, I mean, I'm not a renter anymore, but I'm still active trying to help with this sort of thing, you know, and I think anybody should, you know, landlords would be, you know, it would behoove them to sort of join the movement and try and help out as much as they can. Because
landlords are being downright terrible to tenants. I'm reading some emails that's just, you know,
well, do you want a vacancy or do you want a tenant? You know? No, they're horrible. But, you know, and they gotta realize, like, yo, do you want a vacancy for a little while? Because we're all in the same ship right now. You know, we're all losing our jobs. We all don't have the money that it would take. So yeah, you can kick this perfectly great, you know, fine tenant out, but you're gonna be stuck with an empty building. So what do you really want? You want to lose rent for 1 month or 6 months? You know, come on, get with the program here. You know. It's pretty simple to understand. It's not crazy.
Yeah, and then, you know, also, crap, I just lost my train of thought. It was
that happens.
Kind of well, oh geez, don't you hate when that happens?
I do. It's fine. Don't worry. It's just, you know, we've got to ensure that the whole system doesn't come grinding to a halt, and now the fact that so many people don't have the income right now is a time where we need to stop this. I mean, we need, and you kind of pointed it out a bit ago, we need to do a moratorium on rents and mortgages, and really in the broader scheme of things probably debt, but really those two things together just kill it all. Now some people have, you know, but we'll see.
That was a thing that I meant to say. Jared Polis very carefully dodged that entire situation. And the reason that I said that is because he didn't actually issue any orders, but he made it seem like he acted by saying, I strongly encourage landlords, property management companies, etc., to work with your tenants if they can't or do not pay. But he never, like, he just suggested that. It was just a very nice, like, it would be really nice if you could work with people, but, like, you know,
I think
it would be really nice. There's not a law,
right?
And it doesn't force people to treat tenants fairly,
right? And I think that there is now, granted, and I'm not trying to, you know, do anything other than there's a thought that comes to mind here. It just might be difficult to enact such a sweeping change. And I don't know if they're working on it. I know that there's a task force that he's got built that's, in there trying to figure out how to maintain economic viability for the state. And I no doubt know that that is one of the options that is on the table. But the thing is, even if you look at putting a moratorium on mortgages, I think it's kind of now, and I want to brush up on this for the next time we talk, and because I kind of want to continue to talk about this. I think that there's probably an issue when it comes to trying to mandate banks who are not in state or here to just say, to abide by a state level law. And I think that's where it becomes a little tricky. Now, when it comes to tenants and rent, there are things that he could be doing, no doubt. I just wonder if there's a plan that will be coming out soon that encompasses all of those things. Do you know what I mean? Because I know that there is an economic task force that's on it, from what I understand. Do you know what I mean?
Right.
That's the only thought that kind of comes to mind, is that it's like he hasn't acted just because the whole infrastructure and ramifications of any specific order haven't been completely understood yet, Now, and I'm not trying to defend him, but, we need this now sooner rather than later. April is fast approaching.
Well, I forget, other states have issued executive orders, freezing payments on rents and things like that. But it's, I guess every state's different and has their own set of laws and standards and everything like that. But I kind of it made me pretty annoyed that
hasn't happened.
He said these grand things that made people feel good and everything, but at the end of the day, it really just didn't apply to anybody because, it wasn't like an order or anything like that. It was just kind of, he was like, hey, it'd be really nice if these landlords would let their tenants get by on rent this month, but he kind of left it open to being an honor system, which if you're talking about landlords, they don't have any of that.
Well, and a lot of humans in general. Let's be real here too. It's greed, baby. It's pretty prevalent.
I saw a meme the other day that was oh, what am I gonna do? I need that rent payment to pay my mortgage, and it was well, you could do work at a job like I do, but also, thanks for reminding me that I not only pay for my ability to live in this building, but I also pay for your ability to own it.
Yeah. Post that if you've. Yeah, I know it's stressful. But at least there are communities that are being built around it. There's Facebook groups, there's people who are organizing there. I mean, I don't know if any of the Fort Collins people are in touch with the Denver people, and I know that there's some, cross-pollination.
Yeah, we're all spread it out.
Which is good, yeah. We need that. We need to be kind of, when it comes to the Front Range or just in Colorado in general, kind of be a united front on this one, and place the demand. I think the thing is that, since there's only been that side of goodwill to it, where, the key differences between suspending evictions and actually suspending, mortgage or rent, the difference is there, since there hasn't been any definitive, executive orders yet, we still need to be a united front going into April, which is, days away, essentially. And that's a scary thought, to be honest.
Yeah. I mean, I'm terrified right now, Yeah. I mean, I think I'm going to be okay. I think the cops are going to have a lot of evictions to process. And, I also know that, it's not incredibly expensive to go to Home Depot and get a different lock for my door.
No, it's not very much at all.
And I know that I could just put some trash bags over my windows. I'm basically just squatting in my apartment now.
Yeah. Did they send you one of those terrible letters or?
Oh, not yet, because they haven't realized that I'm not paying rent.
That's it. That's the fucking spirit.
I'm enjoying it here. I'm pretty much squatting in my apartment.
There you go. Do it. And, do it for as long as you can.
Yeah, I'm working on it. And, I'm still going to have a job the whole time. So, if the hammer comes down, I could potentially be okay because everything, but I want to stand in solidarity with people who have to strike.
Exactly.
And I want to put just as much on the line as them, which is, my home. And
Yep.
I've always been kind of a person who doesn't have a lot of material possessions to begin with.
Mm-hmm.
And, all of my guitar gear lives in my car.
Yep.
I could fit enough clothes to get by in a duffel bag or two, and those would have plenty of space in my car, and I would be fine.
Yeah.
I could end up finding somewhere to go, but basically I'm prepared to be a part of this strike because I think it's important to have a collective group of people decide that they're not going to be pushed around and extorted during a crisis by people that don't need their money. And if I have to lose my apartment over that, fuck it. It's not a very nice apartment anyway.
Yeah.
And I kind of hate living here because it's overpriced. It's a tiny little shoebox, and I haven't been able to play guitar or sing loudly unless I'm at a rehearsal studio in like a year. So
you should probably
I'm
start
done trying to make art here.
Yeah, or you should just start doing it doubly so. April 2nd.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, it's been lovely talking to you, Adrian. Always a super big pleasure. Thanks for calling in. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, you too, Anthony. Everybody out there, rent strike April 1st. Don't pay rent. Don't let the landlords and banks and assholes push you around. Join us. The movement is growing. We will not be defeated.
There we go. That's wow. Did you rehearse that?
No, I just, I'm pissed off.
Perfect.
I'm pissed off, and I love punk rock sloganery.
Yeah, there you go. Well, and you said it in that perfect cadence, too, which was great. You know what I mean? It was fantastic. But, yeah, go check it out. We'll link some of the groups or whatever we can in the comments. And if you want to do that, too,
cool.
If you know anything, Adrian, that just type them in. But thanks for coming on. We'll talk to you soon.
All right, see you later.
Later. All right, ladies and gentlemen, that wraps up another episode of Lockdown Live. So we're going to start booking these guests a little bit ahead of time, which is great. I think we're going to kind of chill a little bit on the call-in section. If you want to call in, if you have something to say or feel like you got something to get out, send us a message. Also, always accepting music submissions, because we need music like you hear in the background here. We need music all the time. We need it for behind the podcast. We need it for whatever. So if you've got it, DM us on Facebook, send us an email at info@saltmag.online. Do something, and we'll put it up here. So, but it's been great. You can find this episode on Spotify after the show. We're going to cut it and upload it right away, so it will be available for you to add to your queue for tomorrow morning or whatever. Share this with your friends. We're trying to do this every single day during the lockdown. Give people some hope, give people some life, kind of talk to people, and also just do a really crazy good interview. We're a print magazine by nature, and now we're going digital. So here we are. And thanks for tuning in. We really appreciate you, and we'll see you tomorrow.